Hey everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Curse of Imposter Syndrome in 5 Steps. My name is Jen Trum, and after 20 years in human resources, I'm now a life coach for other women in HR who struggle with confidence and want to be able to show up in their lives as who they are and more authentically so they can continue to grow in their professional and personal lives. So, I want to start today by asking a question. Do you struggle sometimes with feeling as though who you are, as you are, is good enough? Yeah, me too. A lot. And I think this sense of not feeling good enough is really what imposter syndrome is all about. And I think imposter syndrome shows up in our lives in one of two ways. The first is it causes us to freeze. We don't speak up during the meeting. We don't take action. And for me in my life, it has shown up in ways that have really caused me to not be the person I most want to be. A good example of that is not too long ago, I joined a women's group. And for me, that was a big deal because I'm introverted, I'm shy, I struggle. And so joining this group was a really cool thing. And not only was it a women's group to meet connections, but it's a group that helps in the community. And so it's about giving back. It's an organization called Junior League. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but so I joined the group and I got to a point where I started to get scared, started to fear that maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I won't fit in. Maybe they're not going to like me. Right. And so what that caused me to ultimately do is freeze when it came to an event. And looking back now, I can recognize that and see that freezing was really because I was afraid. I was afraid to show up. I was afraid to be myself. I was afraid that they would see how nervous I was. So, the other way that imposter syndrome shows up in our lives is when we take action that does not authentically align with how we really feel, with who we really are. And for me, that showed up throughout my first year of becoming a coach. I think becoming a coach is really way more difficult than I ever thought it was going to be. I mean, I like when it came to HR, I knew my stuff, but coaching is really about helping other people to believe in themselves, even if they don't yet fully believe in themselves. And it's about seeing the potential in other people. So, what I've come to realize now becoming a coach is the only way that I was going to be able to be successful and grow as a coach is by doing the hard work to learn how to believe in myself. And that has created a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of not feeling good enough, a lot of not feeling as though I belong or that I can do it. And so along the way, I've really been able to recognize that imposter syndrome is actually not a bad thing. It's not a problem until we decide it's a problem, right? So the imposter syndrome itself is really because we're uncomfortable with the discomfort that inevitably comes when we are trying to grow, when we're trying to be better, when we're trying to do better, when we're not quite there yet. Right. And so I now fully believe that there is no growth in our lives, professionally, personally, nothing. There's no getting better. There's no rising to a higher version of ourselves without having imposter syndrome, without feeling the discomfort that's going to come. And so I created these 5 steps, not just to, well, let me change that. I created these 5 steps to help you get over your imposter syndrome, to help you recognize that imposter syndrome is just holding you back from where you really want to be. So with that, I am going to share my screen. Let's get to it. Okay. All right. That's great. You just saw the presentation. All right. So, again, I really believe that imposter syndrome is the fears that we have when it comes to showing up as our most authentic selves. And when we have fears around being our most authentic self, it causes us to not show up as authentically as we could, or in the case of freezing, not show up at all. So I want to really encourage you as we go through these slides to recognize that imposter syndrome is a part of being human. It's a part of our journey as people. And the sooner we can recognize that, I think the sooner we can have a little softness around it, and understand that it's not the problem that I think that we have made it out to be. So let's get going. All right, the first step is awareness. I think the power of awareness is really the core of the coaching work that I do. And the reason is because we as humans are just, we're thinking constantly. On average, a human being has up to 60,000 thoughts a day, right? And I think that we are so on autopilot. We have so many thoughts that we have in our head that come up over and over again. There was a study that said that 95% of our thoughts tend to be recycled, and they're thoughts about, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about others, what we believe about our world, how we see our home, how we see, our relatives. And so awareness is the foundational piece of being able to slow ourselves down so we can become aware of what our thoughts and beliefs and stories are. And it's really about becoming honest and truthful with ourselves around what some of those thoughts, beliefs, and stories are, because it's not going to be fun. Let me put it that way. It's not going to be fun, but it is necessary when it comes to recognizing why the imposter syndrome shows up for you the way that it does, and why it continues to cause you to either freeze or take action that does not feel like you. So number one is awareness. And becoming aware is a process that I think requires, like, a couple of things really help when it comes to awareness. The first one is journaling, to just get the thoughts that you're having down on paper and start to see how it is that you are talking. So when you journal, you want to do so in such a way that you're not filtering. You're not like trying for it to have a certain story to it. You want it to be natural. Like, what is actually going on in my brain? What am I thinking about? And that's a skill that takes time to build. I think most of us are just not super comfortable with thinking about what we're thinking about, right? And so becoming more comfortable with that is definitely a process. And one of the ways that I have gotten to that process is through meditation, and mindfulness that comes from meditation, just being with my breath, being with myself, and allowing whatever comes up to come up, but not to get sucked away into it. And by doing that, I'm able to slow myself down in such a way that when it comes to going back and journaling and putting my thoughts down, I'm going to have more clarity around it, because now I'm more aware of what my thoughts are. So that is step number one, awareness. Step number two, your thoughts are not necessarily facts. So, this quote from Mark Twain, I really love. So, Mark Twain's quote says, "Life does not consist mainly or even largely of facts or happenings. It consists mainly of the storm of thoughts that's forever flowing through one's head." So, thoughts that we have are essentially just what we've chosen to believe about the facts and the circumstances around us. They are largely not facts themselves, and it's important to analyze them in order to be able to recognize that. So, one of the big breakthroughs I had a few years ago was when I realized that at a very young age, I had chosen to believe that I was shy. I went on a trip with my parents and we went to relatives that I hadn't met before. And we got out of the car and I was little, I think 3, 4. And I was hiding behind my mom's legs. And I remember my mom saying that, "Oh, she's just shy." And that was a moment that changed me. And I believed it. I chose to believe it. Right. And so that's the key phrase is chosen to believe. And I think that when we start to recognize that there are so many thoughts and beliefs that we have that are not based in fact, that are based in a story that we've been telling, it can be an incredibly liberating moment for us to see that when we choose to recognize that that is really how we've been kind of functioning for so long. So, number 2, thoughts versus facts. Number 3, you choose. So there is a fable that I love. It's my favorite fable, and it's about a grandfather and a grandson. And the grandfather is telling the grandson that you have two wolves inside your head. You have one wolf who is all about kindness and love and compassion, and then you have another wolf who is about jealousy and anger and fear and ego. And these two wolves are always battling each other. They're always fighting one another. And so then the grandson looks up at the grandfather and says, "Well, grandfather, who will win?" And the grandfather says, "The one you feed." So that fable to me is so powerful because it reminds me every time I read it, every time I tell it, it reminds me of my choices and how much more empowered I am than I like to give myself credit for, right? I think that there is so much that we choose in terms of how we view our circumstances, how we view our life and our world around us and the other people. And we ultimately get to choose. So I think that this process of choosing how we want to look at our life, choosing where we want to focus our attention so it better serves us versus focusing our attention on things that don't serve us is really, I think, where the practice comes in of awareness and of being able to recognize the thoughts versus the facts. So choosing is really then getting to the point where you see the thought, you see what's factual, and then you get to decide which direction that you want to go based on what you feel is going to best serve you in your life. All right, step 4. This is all heavy and I'm enjoying every second of it. So, step number 4, emotions equal energy. So, it is so important that we understand that our emotions, how we feel, when we feel good, when we feel bad, the emotions that we feel is energy. That is all it is. So often, I think when it comes to feeling imposter syndrome, feeling not good enough, feeling like you don't fit in, or, anything that gives you a really uncomfortable emotion, I think so often that emotion is something that almost feels unbearable. It feels so heavy and so difficult that the first thing that we want to do is distract ourselves or avoid the emotion in some way, shape, or form. We want to get away from it as fast as possible. And I think that thinking, unfortunately, is not serving us over and over again because we're just pushing the emotion down. We're not actually addressing it. We're instead buffering, which means, we might be eating or drinking or social media or TV or something else, overworking, procrastination. There's so many things that we do to keep ourselves from having to feel uncomfortable emotions. And I want to offer to you that the emotions themselves is not the problem. It's not the problem. The problem are all the thoughts that you're having that's keeping that emotion from being able to process and flow through you. So when you can learn the powerful and really important skill of allowing your emotions to pass through you without fighting them, without thinking them, you will be able to change your life, because separating your thoughts and your feelings is one of the most important skills that I teach as a life coach. So don't forget, your emotions are just energy. They're not going to hurt you. It's not going to kill you. It's just energy. All right. Last one, and most important one is love. So I really have come to believe that imposter syndrome is a good thing. Imposter syndrome is just a reminder that you're uncomfortable because you're growing. You're stepping in to a new version of yourself. And that's okay. That discomfort is absolutely okay. And I want you to recognize that when you can start to learn how to love yourself, how to pour into yourself, how to give back to yourself, and and have compassion for yourself, you will completely transform your life. So I give 4 ways that I believe that we can love ourselves more unconditionally. The first one is honoring your heart, not allowing others or society to decide how you live, what you love, who you are, what you do. And I think that so often in our lives, we end up going down paths that ultimately don't serve us. Or maybe they did at one time and now they don't. So honoring ourselves is true love for ourselves. And I will be totally honest with you, this takes time. It takes time to love yourself enough to honor your heart over what other people tell you or what's expected. And so you have to have grace that this process, each of these steps, take time to build into our lives. And that's really, I think, what coaching's all about, personal development, personal growth, all of that is about helping you through this challenging process. All right, number 2 is looking in the mirror with love and worthiness. It's tough. It's not easy for so many of us to look in a mirror and feel love and feel worthy and feel that fully without feeling as though it's needed from others to feel that validation, to recognize our own worth and value. And again, just like with the first one, this takes time. I stood in the mirror many, many times as I was not confident yet. building my confidence as a coach. So, recognizing that this is a process and takes practice is something that I think can really help you bring more love into your life for yourself. Number three, believing in yourself and your potential more than anyone else. Phew, that's huge. I think of all of them, this is the one that I've struggled with the most is believing in my potential, believing in myself, a future version of myself when I'm not yet there, right? That is a difficult stretch. And so I want to, put my heart out to you and anyone else who struggles with believing in yourself when you're not there yet and you still have more to go. You will get there. I promise you. It's the investment that you make in yourself. It's the time that you take for yourself. It feels selfish and it's not because it's intentional. And having that intention with yourself is going to help you to believe, is going to help you to believe in what's possible. Last one is having compassion for yourself when you fall, when you get rejected, when you make a mistake, when you wake up one morning and you just can't. You just can't. All of it. Having compassion with yourself, coming back to compassion and saying, you know what? I am just doing the best I can. Some days are going to be good. Some days are not going to be so good. My life is 50-50. It's up and down. And I'm going to continue to show up and do the best I can with what I have inside of my tank. And as long as you can have that compassion for yourself, it's going to give you that motivation, that drive to get up tomorrow. It'll give you the encouragement, and it will empower you to know that you are worth it. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is I do not want to make this salesy at all, but I do want to encourage you to recognize the power of investing in yourselves. I think we talk so often about our financial investments in our lives, but very little do we talk about the power of investing in our emotional and mental health and being able to grow in our lives by learning how to believe in ourselves, learning how to love ourselves, learning how to take better care of ourselves, all things that's going to help us show up as a better and happier and more fulfilled version of ourselves. So a study not too long ago said that over 80% of people who have worked with coaches have reported increases in their confidence. And I think that there's so many overall life benefits that you get out of it. It improves your work performance, relationships, communication skills, your leadership. You want to be a better leader, you got to get in your own brain and get out of your head. It's so important. So all of that to say that I would love the opportunity to connect with you I'm going to stop sharing this. I would love the opportunity to connect with you for a free discovery coaching call to learn about what coaching is all about and to talk about how imposter syndrome has shown up for you in your life and how you can learn how to address it, how to become more intentional with your life so you can start to move in the direction that you most want to move into. So let me grab my calendar and come back here and put it in the comments. All right. Very good. So that is it for today. I want to thank you so much. I would love to connect with you again for the free discovery call. I think that imposter syndrome, again, is very normal. very much a part of the journey. And it really just needs to be something that we can look at and recognize that it is just a part of the ride and everything is going to be just fine. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you have an incredible day. Bye now.